This is the Choppin It Up show brought to you by the Marching Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. And now, here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Good evening, and I thank God for my unconquerable soul. Welcome to the Choppin It Up show. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and happy to be of service for you tonight. Today is August 27, 2015, 6 o'clock on the West Coast and 9 o'clock on the East Coast. We appreciate all those listening live and or listening in podcast form, whether through iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, our website, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever you are on the interwebs this evening. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network, if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. All right? Welcome back to everyone with us tonight. This is a rebroadcast of the Choppin It Up with Julian Johnson. Sorry for all those that were listening on Tuesday night. Really embarrassing and really hate to do stuff like this. This was my anniversary, actually yesterday. So my wife and I were supposed to be taking off today, and we still kicked it today. Took off. Happy anniversary to my wife. But yeah, definitely the site went down with Blog Talk Radio. They had technical difficulties. They had all these warnings up, I remember, when I logged in on Tuesday, and I was hoping it would get all worked out. It is what it is. We're able to rebroadcast, so welcome tonight if you're back with us. Sorry for the inconvenience. Shout out to Julian. I know he texted me and let him know he was listening. Hopefully he's listening tonight again. So shout out to you. Shout out to everyone that, again, may be listening to the rebroadcast here on the Marching Podcast Network, Chopping It Up with Julian Johnson. Okay, so we'll definitely get into it. Thanks again for listening. Right fast. Don't forget about our Director Series show this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Follow our blog for the press release to that link. Last year's shows, this year's episodes, where you can click and set the reminder for next week. Our series featuring Dr. Kevin O. Davenport, highlighting his book, Practical Techniques for Building the High School Marching Band. And that'll take us into the college football season and our flagship series, The 90 Degree Show. So follow the Marching Podcast for all details and updates and all things with the network. All right. So let me turn down the music here some. Again, keep your eyes and ears with the Marching Podcast. Definitely check out themarchingpodcast.com. So tonight, again, we chop it up with Julian Johnson. And again, shout out to you, Julian. Thanks for listening if you're listening tonight. And thanks for all those who were listening on Tuesday. Again, I'll say Julian was a senior when I was a freshman at Lutheran North. Julian was part of the class of 1993, which was a really good class at Lutheran North and in general, I guess, around a lot of places. My sister, older sister Melanie, shout out to Melanie Denise Beard, went to U City High School, finishing the grade 93. And again, I talked about on Tuesday how it was the early 90s, and it was that transition out of the 80s. It was a good time. I talked about Freaknik. At the time, the early 90s was off the chain. You had Martin. You had Different World. Lots of young black folks wearing the HBCU Nelia, the HBCU sweatsuits. I remember even Bill Cosby back, in those late 80s, even getting into the 90s a little bit, was always wearing some type of HBCU sweatshirt or T-shirt, representing. So at that time there, you had a huge push about HBCUs. Also, the Malcolm X little medallions, the little leather joints, the little Africa continents, and all that time. So, I think the 93 class there at Lutheran North was a good representation of that. A lot of HBCU graduates. Shout out to William Tank Shelby. I know he's not with us anymore. R.I.P. Thoughts and blessings and prayers to him and his family. At this time, I know he was part of 93, went to Tuskegee, and I know that I wanted to chop it up with him, talking about his experience in Tuskegee, talking about just experience about as far as HBCUs are concerned in the city of St. Louis. Like, it's not like it's thriving like that. And then growing up with, my parents being from the South and then having HBCUs there in that city, lots of HBCUs in their states that they grew up, my experiences were different. My exposures, given it, just like we talked about the Memphis games, we talked about the Chicago games, we chopped it up with Johnny Goodlow and the Circle City Classic. So all of that stuff, rolled into how I knew Julian at the time, I guess just painting the picture. But Julian was a huge role model, the president of the Organization for the Advancement of African American Culture, which later evolved there at Lutheran High School North, I think, for the appreciation of all colors, or all cultures, of course, non-white or other than Caucasian, or anything that's glorified in the regular curriculum. But he was the president of that organization there when I was there, or when I was a freshman. And then, of course, he went on. I won't say where he went to school, but later saw him at the pre-college of where I later attempted to go to school. I think there's a little backstory to that as well. But just really good to know Julian, and now he was able to come back to St. Louis, being that level-headed, mature role model, being at the time where a lot of unrest, a lot of things were going on in the city of St. Louis. Of course, everyone understands about the news, the Michael Brown, all of the stuff with race relations, I guess, abroad, countrywide, worldwide, essentially. A lot of that press was focused in on St. Louis, and, thank God that we were able to have people like Julian there and to help for the city. But definitely good-looking brother, real photogenic brother, too. Takes a lot of pictures, has like the same smile on all the pictures, like a politician or something. But a really good brother, just a really good dude, really good advice. And then, of course, just really glad that he's there. And then I think we got into it in an interview. I think last time I was at home, he took me out. Shout out to you. And shout out to the class of 93 as well. I know I talked about Aaron Foster on Tuesday night, too. Really good role model for me. I wanted to be Aaron, when I was a freshman coming in playing trumpet in the band. So we definitely have to get that interview. But again, shout out to Julian, the class of 93. And then shout out to all those folks, again, that were listening. Tuesday, we have the interview for you guys tonight, and we hope it goes well. I do not see all of those flashing warning signs from Blog Talk Radio support saying that they're working on the problem. So I think we may be good to go tonight. All right? This will be a podcast, but we will accept your calls at 718-664-6025. You can email the show at martianpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at martianpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.martianpodcast.com. If you're listening live and have a Blog Talk Radio account, you can log into the chat room and leave your comments there. Last and definitely not least, please check out themartianpodcast.com. Let's take the time to hear from our sponsors. Tonight's show is brought to you by Liquid Effects Photography, to Edge One Productions, Block Band Music and Publishing, and bandhead.org, and HBCUbands.com. Let's take the time to hear from them now.
My name is Rashad Waters, and I'm the owner of Block Band Music and Publishing and the infamous Prune Juice on the fifthquarter.com. And I'm chopping it up on the Marching Podcast Network.
Having an anniversary party, birthday party, or better yet, you're about to marry that special someone? Liquid Effects Photography is the perfect choice to immortalize all your most special moments. With 10 years of dependable professional service that can deliver from the conventional to the best in cutting-edge technology and creativity. Come experience the uniqueness of Liquid Effects Photography. We serve the entire upper Midwest and will travel further upon request. Come check us out at liquideffects.com. That's LIQUIDEFFEX.com. Or call us at 773-454-5556. That's 773-454-5556.
From photo shoots to graduation pictures, from probates to band footage, from pageants to yard shows, there's only one team you can count on, the Edge One Productions. Visit theedge1.com and trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Band directors, have you ever found yourselves in this situation? Showtime is quickly approaching. Your budget is quickly disappearing. Your music choices are narrowing. The equipment condition is wearing and your stress level is mounting. Stop what you're doing and contact Block Band Music and find out how we've got you. Check www.blockbandmusic.com, providing music, equipment, gear, and accessories to show style, core style, and traditional bands worldwide.
What if there was a Facebook for bands? Wait a minute, there is. Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org is a social network for HBCU show bands. You can create your own profile and post videos, photos, and comments on Bandhead.org. Need somewhere to post events, audition schedules, job postings? Check out Bandhead.org. Are you recruiting for talent? Go to Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org, a social network for bands.
What up, bandheads? Are you looking for a talk show about HBCU marching bands? Well, look no further than the 90-Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast. Every Sunday during the football season at 8 p.m. Eastern, we recap the most intriguing battles of the weekend and give you, the listener, an opportunity to voice your opinion on the battle by calling into the show and talking with our panelists. Are you ready for the only interactive show in the world for HBCU marching bands? Then check us out Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. The 90-Degree Show, the interactive HBCU band podcast show.
Hi, I'm Julian Johnson, Associate Pastor of Bethesda Temple Church in St. Louis, Missouri, and also a Hampton University alumni, class of 97, and you're chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
All right, thanks. We are back, and we are ready to chop it up with Julian. Again, we will accept your calls at 718-664-6025. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog the4.themarchingpodcast.com. All right? Again, ready? So without further ado, let's chop it up with Julian Johnson. You're now here with the Marching Podcast, and we always have great guests, but it's always good to talk to folks from back home. Mr. Julian Johnson, what's going on today, Julian?
Joe Beard, I'm doing good, man. It's good to hear from you. Thanks for having me on.
I know, man. Thanks a lot, man. Last time I was in the STL, not to give out, where you're from. I always ask people where they're from first, but not to give that out. We went out, what was that, to brunch to, what's that?
Goody Goody.
Goody Goodies.
Goody Goody.
I know, out in the STL. So, really good spot, but yeah, appreciate that, man. But let's go ahead and get into it, man. Julian, where are you from, man?
Well, originally born and raised right here in St. Louis.
Okay.
This is home.
Now,
and
I was going to ask
go
you.
ahead.
I was going to ask you now. Are your folks and where your family originally is all that from? Where are they from?
Well, St. Louis is considered ground zero. Both of my parents are from here. Like I was going to say, I spent a year of my life in Houston, Texas as a kid. But then we eventually moved back to St. Louis, and I'd stayed here until it was time for me to go off to school.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I didn't know that, but like you say, St. Louis STL is ground zero then.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's cool. That's what's up, man. So now, and for all the folks from back home that, as far as frame of reference, what area did you grow up in, like in St. Louis?
I grew up in a suburb of St. Louis known as Berkeley, and Berkeley is positioned in North St. Louis County. It's right adjacent to what has now become the world-famous city of Ferguson.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that makes sense. I actually, I'm not giving it away, but we have the National Signing Day show coming up pretty soon, and one of the students is from Berkeley High School. Well, excuse me. I'm incorrect. It is now McClure South Berkeley.
McClure South Berkeley. Yeah, that's the new name.
Wow. How do you know how? What is it? Did they merge or something? Or something like that?
Well, Berkeley High School was its own separate school, and it had been rumored for years that they were going to close it down because it was so close to the airport, and I think the airport purchased that property. Wow. So once they finally closed the high school, they ended up moving those students. Instead of putting them in McClure or McClure North, they created another high school and named it McClure South Berkeley.
Okay, all right. Let me give some space because I'm going to edit. I think I hear a little bit of the feedback sometimes, like when I speak louder in the mic from your speakerphone. Can you take me on speakerphone?
Sure.
I'll just edit this middle part. What is that, 13? Yeah, okay. Just making a note to myself, that's all.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Because now I don't hear the... Okay, cool. All right, bet. So, now you said that how I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit probably say, okay, bet. Okay, so you answered the question. Cool. All right, let's admit this is just a little edit. Bet. Okay, we'll start from... All right, that's really interesting about the airport. I think... I didn't know like the airport was always rumored, but the only thing I think about when I think about Berkeley is like the track team. You know what I'm saying? Especially we had some wars with them. You know what I mean?
Right. Berkeley was known for its track squad. That's kind of their reputation that they've had for years since I was a kid, since my sister went there.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, okay. So yeah, growing up over there in North County area, there in St. Louis. Now, I always ask folks about what was their first musical experience. Now we grew up in St. Louis, so it wasn't like Band Central or nothing like that. What was the first music instrument that you played?
First instrument I played was the clarinet.
Okay.
I started playing the clarinet, I want to say in 6th grade. I was at Lee Hamilton Elementary School.
Okay. All right. Now, that's the thing. We didn't see anything as far as that time, a show-style marching. When would you say your first experience was seeing like a show-style HBCU black college band?
Oh, man. Live and in person? I don't think I saw one live and in person until I went away to college at Hampton University.
Oh, wow, really? Okay, but you heard what? Because I know. Well, wait a minute. You know what? Because you older than me. The Gateway Classic was like 90. It was 95 maybe or something. It was later.
Yeah.
It was after you graduated high school, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And I was already gone by then.
Okay. That makes sense. Because a lot of folks from the STL, they'd be like, oh, well, it was the Gateway Classic. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we didn't have YouTube and the internet.
None of that stuff.
Right. Okay. So what was your first experience? Who was it? What did you see?
Well, we had our drill team at Hampton University. They were called Ebony Fire.
And we had the marching band and the drum major and everything, and I was somewhat familiar with that stuff. I don't know if you remember the movie from the late '80s called School Days.
Yes.
And school. When I saw School Days when it first came out, and really that's when I got exposed to, the whole black college scene and marching band and all of that stuff. But live and in person, I didn't see it until, again, I went to Hampton University. And I don't remember the first football game I went to and who we played and all of that stuff, but I was very, very intrigued with, the rhythm that the band had and the performance that they did out on the field, and Ebony Fire, the drill team, and the Pom Pom Squad doing all of that stuff, and that's when it really became live to me. That was my freshman year in college, so that was like the fall of 1993.
Wow. So I always jump ahead. So you got to break down. I'm going to go back to high school because you brought up something, because for me, School Days was like the bomb too, but it was exactly for you, like maybe my cousins, folks who were a little bit older. Then, of course, the Cosby Show, Different World was, I guess, a little bit more at my age, right? And I just thought about School Days, and they had the little band in there on the little or at the football game, at the homecoming. Right. Yeah, I remember that scene.
Right.
So that's cool. So what made you, I guess, that movie School Days, was that kind of like the thing that really inspires you to kind of go to Hampton, to decide to go to school there?
School Days, yeah, that was the platform that I kind of jumped off on and started in terms of exploring black colleges and HBCUs. It stuck in the back of my mind, and I remember my senior year in high school at Lutheran North, I started looking into applying at some universities. In my senior year, I remember the first school I actually applied to, or was going to apply to, rather, I should say, was Howard University.
Okay.
And the only reason I did not apply to Howard was because their application fee was too much for me at the time. So I skipped them, and I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Tuskegee, Clark, and Hampton.
Wow.
And I got accepted into all 3. And so from there, it was just a matter of picking and choosing which one I wanted to go to.
Man, that's like so exciting because like you said, I mean, I guess there's a little bit more HBCU exposure there now, but it wasn't a lot. I talked to John Needham on the show. He went to Dillard.
I remember John.
Yeah, he went to Dillard, so I think he said kind of seeing like School Days and Different World, that kind of sparked him too, because in St. Louis it wasn't around us. Like, we didn't have a school in the state where folks saw the band, heard about the band, and it was like,
right.
Oh man, we basically were gonna go to Mizzou, or our standard was like Mizzou. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's really cool. I didn't know that you knew that you were going to go to a historically black college. When did you decide that you were going to do that? Your senior year or like your junior year? Did you know before you?
No, the junior year I was kind of teetering back and forth.
Right.
Senior year I think is when I really made a firm, concrete decision, and I think some of that might have been influenced by peer pressure, because some of my peers that I graduated with, class of 93, they were going to HBCUs as well, so that kind of sparked the flame for me to, let me dig a little bit into it and see what I can come up with on my own.
Yeah, y'all had a good class. Class of 93 from Lutheran North. Well, 93 was a good class. My sister's 93 from U City, but 93 was a good year, some good folks. So I didn't know a lot of the folks in 93 went off to historically black colleges.
Oh yeah. If you remember some names, Leah Owens, she went to Xavier.
Oh, she
Shani
was
Wagstaff.
She was my senior buddy, my freshman year or something.
Yeah,
and of course her little brother Jared. You know what I'm saying?
Right, Jared.
Right.
And Shani Wagstaff, she went to Clark.
Yeah, that's
And you may remember William Shelby, who's passed away now. Tank, we used to call him Tank. Tank went to Tuskegee.
I remember that. Okay.
And Michelle Graham went to Tennessee State. Aaron Blake went to Alabama A&M. Crystal Young, she went to Grambling. So it was a good number of us who were looking into HBCUs.
Wow, yeah, that's a really good. I mean, because like I said, man, you guys had a good class, man. Some real good, well-rounded folks. So that's really cool. I honestly had no idea. I know my dad would be proud. He went to Jackson State, and that I seemed like that was his mission for my entire class to go to Jackson State. Everybody who played a sport, like Ben Berry for football, Pat, everybody had something. DeAnthony would try. Everybody was going to Jackson State for something. So I don't think he ever knew that. So that's really exciting, and it's like you said, it was around that time. So you went off there, but wait, let me go back, because in high school, while you were being a good mentor, because I saw you that one year before you moved off, you were the president of an organization. Could you let us know what that was, please?
Oh, you remember that, huh?
Yeah, man.
I was president of, it was our Black Student Organization. We called it OAAAC, which stood for the Organization for the Appreciation of African American Culture. And it was really designed to create awareness of African American history among the students there at Lutheran North. The student body then was, I would say it was pretty mixed. It was maybe 50-50, maybe 60-40 if you had to skew it some, in terms of black and white population. And I think there was not a lot of understanding about African Americans and our culture and the way we did things. It was different for a lot of students. And so that organization was actually founded by a fella who was in a class a couple of grades ahead of me. I think he came out of class in 91. His name was Ron. And Ron started that organization with the counselor, Miss Charlotte E.J., and they got the ball rolling on it. And he passed the baton on to me once he graduated, and we did what we could to keep the ball rolling.
That's cool. That's cool, man. Yeah, that was I know we were a part of that organization. I think, let me see here, Miss E.J., She left after we graduated. I think we graduated in 96. Miss EJ, I think she went to Parkway after that. But yeah, that was really cool, because I know it was a bonding experience for all of us all through those years, and just really history facts. Because the reason why I brought that up was because we didn't have the internet to search.
Right.
So we basically, I remember...
Yeah, no social media back then.
Yes. So I remember basically it was the historical facts that we gave to each other. And then, of course, the other outside things like the play and all that, to just, be out in the community. But I just remember the exchanging of information was really exciting because we didn't have that click of the touch. And nobody really felt like going and getting encyclopedias and all that stuff,
Right. Back then we still had to physically go to the library and open books. We didn't have Google. You were doing good if you had email.
If you had email,
then.
yes. That was the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. So, yeah, I had to put that out there just for showing your leadership qualities, because when I was exposed to you, you were already a senior. You were already basically thinking about where you were dipping out to. And, I was just getting myself in there. So you were also a member of the band. That's another reason how I recognize you. Now, how many years did you march there in the band?
Oh, man, I did all 4 years at Lutheran North. Freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior.
Okay.
I did all 4 years. And, continued on with the clarinet. And then somewhere around junior, senior year, I kind of transitioned into playing the bass clarinet.
That's right. That's what I remember. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah, the bass clarinet. That was around senior year.
Yeah, I remember that. With our beloved Mr. T, I interviewed Mr. T last year for our anniversary special.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. You pulling up some names and bringing back some memories.
I know, man. Mr. T, Mr. T even came out here. He was out here for a wedding. And I, in the interview, found out Mr. T actually used to live out here. Actually lived in L.A. I live way out, past the burbs on the way to the desert. But Mr. T used to live in L.A. And he talked about it on the show, and I was like, all right, my bad, Mr. T. And then I guess some of his people or whatever were out here, so he came out, and so I got to see Mr. T. Mr. T still looks the same. He just got all gray hair now. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just all that darkness is just all gray. You got the beard still. So yeah, Mr. T still doing good, man.
That's good.
Yeah. So that was cool. That was just another thing. You were in the band, so you were recognized. Seeing that, I guess you could also appreciate seeing the band since you were in it when you saw Hampton's band. Like, you know what I'm saying? Did you ever think about marching once you got up there?
I did, and I cannot remember, to give you an honest answer, I don't remember why I didn't get in the band at Hampton.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man.
I think it was something I was ready to let go, and just kind of do something different once I got off on my own.
Yeah, because I mean Hampton, man, that's a really pretty campus, man. That's like, especially us coming from St. Louis. That was.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man, that was. Definitely.
We don't get that type of scenery with the bay and the water and boats going by. All we have is the Mississippi River,
right?
The Missouri,
right. And if you go downtown, like, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Right. So that's what's up, man. So yeah, you were in the band, marched in the band. Do you have a memorable experience from the marching band there at Lutheran North?
I would have to say the most memorable experience would be, it wasn't marching per se, but more so we used to do competitions at, I want to say Principia High School, and we would go and have these competitions where we would have to play a solo piece, and we would come in a room with a bunch of judges, and they would critique, the style and the form, and if we hit all the notes and got all the beats right, and then you would get these medals based on how you perform. And ironically, I still have a lot of those medals that I got in band, and I think we had a senior scrapbook, and I kept those medals and put them in those scrapbooks. So that would probably be the most memorable experiences I had, with the marching band in high school.
That's funny you say that, because the way you talk about it was like, this event, that the ABC Music Festival, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, once I got to school and, and I was marching with and playing with guys who were far beyond my musical talent, they were talking about those type of events like that wasn't nothing. Like, they were like, oh, those little music festivals, man. Oh, yeah, I used to get ones on them. Yeah, that wasn't nothing. But they were, like, into competing and performance level stuff just on some other level. Right. But, yeah, that Principia ABC, that was, like, band final competition a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And went on during the spring, you know what I mean? So, those are really exciting, definitely exciting times, because, it was something I could lay my head on once I went out and, into the craziness of the HBU marching band world.
Right.
Yeah, so that's cool, Julian, man. So finally we not at Hampton now. At Hampton, what was your major when you went off to Hampton?
Accounting.
Okay. What did you want to do when you got out?
Eventually, I wanted to, of course, be an accountant and move on to pursue to obtain my CPA, Certified Public Accountant licensure.
Okay, all right. Now, how long were you at Hampton?
Well, I was one of those students. I was on the 5-year plan.
Right.
I didn't finish in 4 years. It took me 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's standard now. I mean, that's a lot to taking 18 hours, man. That's a lot. 18, 20. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So when you were there, and you decided you went off to the HBCU, were you keeping in touch with some of the other folks from like '93 and all that? I guess because you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And we had our 20-year class reunion 2 years ago.
Wow.
And we were, everybody kind of brought some photos and old memories, and I don't know why I kept that stuff, but like you said, like we talked about earlier, back then you didn't have Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, so we physically wrote each other letters. And, put stamps on them and put them in the mail, and so I kept a lot of those letters from people that I went to high school and graduated with, and I brought some of those letters to the reunion. They were like, wow, you kept this stuff? I was like, yeah, I kept it. But, I kept in contact with a lot of people. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking about earlier when I just had lunch with some, like I told you, some classmates that I graduated with today, and I was thinking about how I'm actually closer to a lot of my friends in high school now than I am to people I went to college with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that came from just staying in contact with each other over the years.
Yeah, man. I mean, those letters, I mean, like you said, like I definitely got some letters to those first couple of years. Towards the end, yeah, I mean, as far as me, like you said, with like just internet, I think once I got to graduate school, I understood the concept of like a browser. You know what I mean? Like that was like 2001. So nothing in college. If you were around computers, it was like word processor. You were typing essays and papers. So yeah, definitely writing those letters, or just like you saying, putting a stamp and going to the it meant something, but it was also the bond when you got the letter, yo. Like when you had letters in your mailbox. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's way different than seeing stuff in your inbox. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm sure that bond, was solidified a lot, keeping in contact. Because like I say, I see the pictures. It seems like a lot of folks keep in contact with each other pretty well. So you did Hampton. You finished with your accounting degree. Was it?
I did. Yeah.
Undergrad. Was it like MA?
My undergrad.
Okay.
It was my Bachelor of Science in Business with an emphasis in accounting.
Okay. And then after you leave Hampton, Virginia, where did you? Well, you know what? Let me ask you this: what was your most memorable experience at Hampton, at historically black college?
Oh man, I think the most memorable experience was traveling to Washington, D.C. for the Million Man March.
Oh, that's right. You were 95, right?
Yeah, that was 1995. That was my first time actually going to Washington, D.C. And it was my first time traveling with people that I had met while I was at Hampton, going up there together. We carpooled, and we rode up in droves, trailing each other, speeding, going up 95 North, headed to D.C. And that was a very memorable moment for me, because it was history in the making. Yeah,
and that area too. It's just a really nice area to be in. So, how far is D.C. from Hampton? It's not how far, like not that far.
That's about 2.5 hours.
Okay, so not that bad.
Give or take.
Right.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Right, and how far was Hampton from Virginia Beach?
That was about maybe 30 minutes. That wasn't too far either.
Okay. So, I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was that close, because I remember I went.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know. I just didn't remember it being that close. Okay, so
yeah, that whole area, it's known as Hampton Road, so it's Norfolk, Newport News, Virginia Beach, Hampton, all of those cities, Chesapeake, Suffolk, they all kind of make up that whole metropolis.
Okay, yeah, that all makes sense for all the listeners who haven't been in that area. That is a a really beautiful area. But again, you're talking about a lot of colleges, a lot of educated folks too. So it ain't just like wild mass kicking it. You know what I mean? Like Southern California, you know what I'm saying? but no, I mean it's off the chain. I mean, out there in that area, just the people, a lot of educated individuals in that particular area for all the folks. And then of course, it's a good. I mean, Hampton, Norfolk. I mean, good bands. Good programs.
Mm-hmm. Norfolk State.
Yeah, you can't beat that. You know what I mean? So it's definitely something for maybe some of the young folks who are listening. Exploring opportunities. That area is really nice for that. Because I remember. I was at the pre-college, for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got my little taste of the area during that time. You know what? It makes me think about it, and, I mean, I'm recording now. You actually introduced me to two females, and I remember I stayed at their apartment, like, a night, and I was rolling and was kicking with them. You probably don't even remember, man, but they were really cool. And I'm just now remembering, since I brought that up, they were really nice. Yeah, man, they were really cool. I was just wondering if you were still keeping in touch with them. But no, they were.
Do you remember who it was?
No, I don't remember. I remember it was two of them. It was like they were roommates. And I remember.
It had to be Angela and probably Jennifer.
And you introduced me to them, and I think I went over their apartment. And I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
I spent the night over there. And I think they were from Baltimore. They said they knew Teddy Riley or something like that.
From Baltimore? No, that wouldn't be them then.
No.
That's somebody else.
Well, no, they weren't from Baltimore, but I think they were saying something about Baltimore. So it's coming to my head just toggling. I was just telling somebody I interviewed earlier. I actually am on the air, looking at my notes, and I don't actually start toggling memories until I actually start talking on the air live. And I start remembering something. I'm like, whoa. But yeah, man, it was just an example of just how cool you were, man. Like, and it was cool.
I appreciate it.
Just seeing how, like, you was just, like, you were able, like, you knew folks in high school, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You knew folks in college, you know what I'm saying? You just maneuvered, you know what I'm saying? Because I saw you a couple times at the pre-college.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, so after you left Hampton, then where did you go after that?
Well, actually, after I graduated from Hampton, I stayed there for a while.
Okay.
And I made Virginia home. I got married and started my career path, you could say, right there in the area. And, I stayed there for a couple of years before I moved back to St. Louis.
Okay, all right, because I'm about to say, I'm guessing why wouldn't you say? But you moved back to St. Louis. Did you move back for a career opportunity? And now, wait, your wife, Miss Johnson, is she from Virginia or is she from St. Louis?
No, actually, Melanie is from Atlanta.
Yeah, and y'all met at
originally.
Hampton.
We actually, she joined the United States Air Force, and she got stationed at Langley Air Force Base there in Hampton. And she and I ended up going to the same church in Hampton, and that's where we met.
Wow.
We met at church.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, hey, that's good. That's what you say. You always go to church, meet women, the library. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's dope. Okay, so and then y'all been together all this time. And she moved back to the STL with you. That's all good. Now, when did you start having your kids there in St. Louis?
No, we had our firstborn in Virginia. We got married in '98, and 2 years later, the first one came, and let's see, let me get my years together. 4 years later, the second one came, and by then we were back in St. Louis. We moved back here in 2003.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you were out there. Yeah, you were out there in Hampton, Virginia for a while.
Yeah, I was out there 10 years.
Yeah, I feel you, man. So I have to ask, what is do you like St. Louis better or do you like Virginia? Even though St. Louis is home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, St. Louis is home, and it'll always have an affection. But if I had to choose where I would want to live, pardon me, I would have to go back to the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Because, I mean, I haven't gone back home either. That's why I was telling you offline, like, I haven't been home since high school either. You know, I love home. You know, I always rep the Cardinals and all that. But, you know, it's just a difference. It's just how it is. So, back there in St. Louis, what do you do?
I currently work for the Missouri Housing Development Commission. I am one of their, it's an asset management accountant, and we basically provide funding for management companies that want to build apartment complexes that are designed for people with low incomes.
Okay.
So if they want to build a complex for people either in Section 8 or people who fall within a certain income bracket, instead of going to the bank, they come to the state. They will come to us. We're like the state's bank that gives them the money to go, and then we monitor, you know, everything they do, their finances and their budgets, and make sure that they're in compliance with all the laws of the state and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. And you've been doing that since 2003?
Well, actually, I started this position in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
in 2003, when I moved back here, I had a few temp jobs trying to get back on my feet, and then I went to work for a law firm in Clayton, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis, and then I left there and came to the state, and I've been there ever since.
Oh, all right. That's what's up, man. So there, now, do you still, I know when I came back home, do you still live in the same house out there, kind of like close to UMSL?
Yeah, same house, same location.
Okay, all right, that's cool, man, because, you know, that's Natural Bridge, right, for all the folks. For all the folks back home, that Natural Bridge. I know that area is used to be super off the chain with the speed radar guns and the cops. Is it still like that?
Yeah. It is, yeah. It's still like that, man. You know, St. Louis has a lot of municipalities, and each one of them has their own law enforcement division, and you know, you can drive down Natural Bridge and travel through 5 or 6 different cities in a 10-mile radius.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of crazy with all of the municipalities, but yeah, it's still speed trap territory.
Oh man, I mean off the chain, and I mean people don't even be playing on that street. Everybody is going the speed limit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's no joke over there. But yeah, that's what I always remember about that area, and it's close to school. My trumpet teacher was Lucas and Hunt and Natural Bridge, so like a couple of houses down, like his house was like right off the street, you know, and I used to go over there. And then of course you went the other way, was our high school, Lutheran North,
right? You
know what I mean?
Right.
Do you still go back and check out any of the games, or do you follow the teams or anything like that?
You know, I don't, and it's not because I don't want to. I think it's more so I don't have time to.
Right.
So you know, I hear things from alumni, you know, how the sports teams they're doing, but no, I don't really keep up with it anymore.
Okay, all right, yeah, I know I may try to look and see like what they doing every once in a while. You know what I mean? Or if I hear someone say, "Oh, they qualified for something," you know, I get excited. But yeah, it hasn't. You know, it's been the same for me. Because I know a lot of folks still keep up with the high school. You know what I mean? You know.
Right.
So that actually rolls into, as far as, you know, you being back there in the STL. You've been back there since 2003. So I know that when we were talking, a lot of things has happened in St. Louis since then, good things and bad things. You know, the Cardinals won 2 world championships baseball. You know what I'm saying? Since that time, we were excited about that. Before it was the 80s, I was in kindergarten. You were probably a little bit older than me, like 82 or something like that.
Right, I remember.
The Rams won the Super Bowl, not since 2003, but they were at least they were really, really good around that time.
Right. The fact that they won one is remarkable.
Right. You know. But like bad stuff too, man, and like St. Louis been in the news or just being on the national scene much differently now. But you still like being in the middle of it. So like, of course, maybe the folks don't know what I'm talking about. The police, the police confrontation, ruled legally in court, not a murder or anything. With the police officer and the young man, and nationally the crazy stuff that is going on. Sometimes some of that stuff, it's like the opportunity for people to just lash out and just say what they already feeling anyway. But St. Louis, this was the first time, and I really wanted to get your take on this. Just me. And, man, hold on right quick. I thought about the picture, and I'm going to go right back into my question. Were we in the same home ec class with Miss Hennerforth?
You mean that picture I sent you?
Yeah, where was that picture you sent me, man? Because it's playing right now.
Okay, that picture was in the counseling center of Lutheran North, where Miss EJ's office was. That was in the counseling center. And if I remember correctly, that was after school one day, my senior year, and I don't know what we were doing in there, but somebody took it, of course, and I kept it.
Okay, cool. That's what made me think, because I wondered if like we were in the home ec class, because I know I was in a lot of people in 93 in the home ec class too, so I didn't remember if you were in it. But yeah, that picture, I'm sure I got it playing as part of the slideshow. So I'm sure people say that. So I had to. I got past the high school years. I forgot to ask that. But going back to what I was saying, because I had to get your take. You still there at home, seeing like home on the news, like was like, whoa, like, and then like. When we were in high school, it was like the whole L.A. riots, and people were talking about that. But then, like, seeing, like, St. Louis on TV or just hearing people talking about, like, man, St. Louis, man, you know how it is over there. It's just like, what? Like, what? I guess, man, like, I don't know, could you feel the tension when you walking in the street? Like, I mean.
Oh, definitely. When Mike Brown was shot by the officer Darren Wilson, it's one of those 9/11 moments, where you remember September 11th, you remember where you were, you remember what you were doing. It was like that for me. I was just coming back in town from a convention in Detroit, and I happened to go to Little Caesars Pizza to get my kids some lunch. And this man, I don't know who he is, he just walked up to me and he was like, "Hey, man, did you hear about that kid that got shot over on West Florissant?" And I said, no, and I just got back in town, probably been back in the area about 3 or 4 hours. And he said, "Yeah, officer shot. I know I'm a black dude over there." He's like, "When you get home, watch the news. So I went home and when the news came on, there was some reports about it, and here at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of tension around it when it first burst on the scenes. People just kind of chalked it up to another murder in the area. Well, I believe that was on a Saturday, that following Sunday, they were having a prayer vigil over in Ferguson. And somehow or another, it went from peaceful to violent. And that's when it started making national media coverage. That's when they started the looting and the breaking into the Quick Trip and vandalizing some of the businesses over in Ferguson on West Florissant.
Wow. So that's okay. So after the mayhem, if you will, that's when the national. Because myself, I don't know when it hit the national attention, because I'm not there. I heard about it later, of course, but somebody, I think I was at the gym one morning, this white guy was like, "You're from St. Louis, aren't you?" Like, he was like, man, what are your friends saying back home? And he was all concerned. I'm like, dude, it's the gym, man. We're not supposed to be talking like this. And the reason why I'm just laughing like this, because he was so, I had no idea what he was talking about. So obviously he got prepped the whole night before watching the news. He was all into the story, right? I'm like, why are you so turned up? You know, calm down. So once I left, and I told him, I was like, yeah, man, yeah, man, it's pretty bad back home. Like, I'm just kind of brushing it off. And he looked at me like, yeah, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? So I'm like, yeah. So once I went back, I kind of got, but I definitely felt I was late getting into the game just because, you know, I'm not there. But I didn't know I guess the national attention came after that. But folks was mad, I guess, at the whole story. Right. So, wow. So when did the police story come out? Because that's the other part I don't know either. Like, this thing happened, and of course the explanation always comes out like later. How long after like did the police explanation come out?
It was a couple of days after the actual murder took place that I think it was already rumored underground Michael didn't have a weapon on him. And so I think that brought more attention to the situation.
Oh, okay.
And then people, when they started marching and protesting and standing in front of Ferguson City Hall and the police department demanding answers, that's when the chief of police for the city of Ferguson released that video that people saw of Michael Brown going into the convenience store and roughing up, the owner. And there was some back and forth that he actually purchased the cigarillos, and some people say he stole it, but there's no dialogue on the video, so it's all kind of hearsay. But it really kind of snowballed from there.
Wow.
And I think at a point in all of this, it started to become more than just about Mike Brown, and it was really shifting more towards people's the weariness toward police brutality in St. Louis, which has been going on for a lot of years with racial profiling. And, I can speak from personal experience of, just being in an area and being pulled over and questioned by a police officer for no reason, and the reasons that they'll give you is, well, there's alleged drug activity in the area, and, I got on a suit and tie, so why are you stopping me? I don't fit the profile of anybody that you're looking for. And, there's a coined expression here now, you get pulled over and the charge is driving while being black. So there's there's a lot of that's been going on. And so I think people use Mike Brown's death as a platform to express their frustration overall for a behavior pattern between citizens and black citizens and law enforcement officers that's really been going on for years.
Yeah, man, and it's definitely different. There's always going to be a cultural medium between black and white, and that's going to be in every state. But definitely, it's the intensity is different there in St. Louis, and that's kind of what I try to explain to some people. Well, of course, I guess because some folks are turned off. That's one thing too about I guess these issues of some race. Some folks ain't trying to hear certain stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
No matter if the point comes out of what you say, they don't want to accept that because of some other, maybe an insecurity or something in their character that's closing the door for that. So that's, I definitely want to say that part. But, recalling all of that stuff, I didn't know too much of what was going on, man. It's just, I was so much on the outside, And of course, all I saw was just bad. I mean, folks, I just saw about St. Louis talking about it was a war zone, and folks watching CNN like it was the reality show. So,
well, and it really was a war zone, and I think that was kind of shocking to see. When people were protesting and going up and down, you saw the videos of people marching on West Florissant. I went out there a couple of times. And protested and marched and kind of just taking it all in, because this is not something that, this is stuff our parents and grandparents went through with the civil rights movement. This isn't anything that you have seen our generation have to deal with. And I remember being out there one night with my cousin Reggie, and while we were walking back to my vehicle, we just saw all of these swarms of police and National Guard driving in, and we're like, what's going on? Because people were peaceful. Mm-hmm. And, when you aren't on the ground seeing this stuff, all you really have to go off of is what the media shows you.
Man.
And I know from seeing firsthand, even in that night, how they would come and just start agitating people, go home and roughing folk up. And, you keep, throwing a stick at a dog, eventually he's going to fight back. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what was going on. And, the media kind of captured the fight time moment between the citizens and the law enforcement officers without really showing what agitated the situation.
Yeah, man.
You had a couple of people out there who were, they looked at it as an opportunity to loot, unfortunately, and they took advantage of a bad situation. But the majority of the people out there really just wanted some answers. They were angry. They didn't trust the law enforcement officers anymore, and they had a right to peacefully protest. And in many cases, that's what it was until the situation got agitated.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point is there were some bad folks taking advantage of the situation, but at the same time, I think, and hopefully, I'm sure the police can, would admit it. Now they were mad too. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. One of their boys messed up, and it's really not going to come out and be like, my bad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they were trying to do their best to, I guess, keep the united front alive. They were trying to be strong during the situation, and a lot of things, it didn't really go down as peacefully as people thought. But it was, like they say, I was seeing it from the outside, and I even know now, I think, like Time Magazine, a Pulitzer Prize-winning photo is of someone who has the American flag on as a shirt, and looks like they're throwing a cherry bomb or a Molotov cocktail. They got it in their hand, cocked back, and that was in St. Louis somewhere. You know what I mean? So that's like a Pulitzer Prize-winning picture of St. Louis, but it's like Beirut a little bit, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's that freaks me out, man. Just because I ain't there, but that's like home, and I know it's racially bad. I know it's pretty intense there in St. Louis. I just never saw it on that stage to get like that, and then the things that people said. Of course, what it's a trip, man. But you were there on the ground, like you said. You were out there a couple of times. People were frustrated, but you were actually trying to help the situation in some circumstances. Could you let the listeners know about that?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we didn't discuss is my role in ministry, and
I was rolling into that. Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Well. I aside from being an accountant, which is my bread and butter job, I'm also in ministry. I'm an associate pastor of a church here in St. Louis. The name of it is Bethesda Temple Church. And we have done a lot of things for the community, as much as we can to bring about some closure and peace for the citizens that actually live there. Once things started to die down, one of the main concerns that I had was, where do we go from here? After you've marched and, balled your fist up in the air saying no justice, no peace, then what?
Right.
And so we thought it would be a good idea to have some law enforcement officers along with city officials and attorneys to come and talk to some of the young people, not only at our church, but we opened it up to the community. Come and talk to them about knowing your rights, knowing the law, knowing what to do and what not to do in situations when you are confronted with a law enforcement officer, how we can heal as a community, which I think a lot of people have raised that question, but nobody's really come to a concrete answer on it. And another unique thing that I saw in this situation, I think birthed out of this, you had a lot of grassroots initiatives, people doing their own thing, and you had the NAACP come in, and we need to come together, and we need to come together. And I kept looking around, and I'm saying, well, we are together. Mm-hmm. You know, we're gathering in churches, we're talking about what should be done, and instead of everybody venting how they feel and how angry and upset they are, what are the solutions that we're bringing to the table? And I left a lot of those forums somewhat disappointed because I felt like, you know, after we yelled and expressed how we felt, what got done? And so I wanted to put something together, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I wanted to put something together that would work on solutions. You know, we had the media out, we had the newspapers come out. We've gone out in Ferguson since then. We fed people in the Canfield apartment complex where Mike Brown lived. We've taken toiletry items, and because a lot of them weren't able to get out because the National Guard was in there. They had streets blocked off. You had people who worked at night and couldn't get home because they out in the streets fighting and throwing tear gas at people. You know, I met one lady. We went into the neighborhood, and she was saying how her mother was having a hard time breathing at night from the tear gas that they was throwing, and her mother was on an oxygen tank, and it was seeping into her home. And, you know, just hearing those stories and being there with people really to minister to them and comfort them, because it was traumatizing for a lot of them, a lot of the kids who had to go to school. They were scared to go to school, so it did a lot of emotional damage on top of the breach of trust between the citizens and law enforcement officers. So it's not anything that's going to be resolved, you know, in one meeting or two sessions. It's going to take years to rebuild that level of trust and get things back to where they are. And I think we've made some progress, you know, with the recent local elections. People went out to vote. Voter registration was up. Citizens in Ferguson went out to vote, and they've elected some, you know, representation on the city council that reflects them and their community, you know, which is a step in the right direction, but it's going to take some years to bring about healing.
Wow. That's, I mean, it's those little stories, like you said, from that lady in her home. That's crazy, man. So like you said, you were just going there, being there, like, you know, the leadership role, you know, is kind of patterned out for you and everything. So I have to ask you now, on the side, like you say, you're a minister there at Bethesda Temple. That's the name?
Correct.
How often, well, let me ask you this, your preparation for speaking, does that take up, how long does that take up? And do you use a lot of the same, like when you speak to people, do you use like the same format and go to multiple places like with the same speech?
No. When I speak to people, it's really, I try to assess the needs of the community, the needs of the people, the level of education of the people. You know, it depends. I don't want to talk over people's head, you know, depending on who I have in my audience. And then, you know, I don't want to insult people's intelligence, depending on who I have in my audience. So I kind of have to, it's almost like mirror and match. See what's in front of you and then kind of go with the flow.
Wow.
And that kind of sets the tone of what needs to be addressed. You know, if there are a lot of single mothers in the audience, then I have to talk to them. If you got a lot of men in the audience who have been, you know, previously incarcerated, then you have to speak to their pain, because a lot of them, you know, they're angry. You know, some of them, everybody hasn't been locked up for justifiable reasons, and so they carry that bitterness with them. And sometimes people act out of their emotions. And that's one thing that has been consistent, has been the tone of me encouraging people not to react out of their emotions, because people's feelings, they change. They're fleeting. Feelings lie. You can feel one way in the morning, and come noon, you can feel another way. I mean, you know, you can go to the grocery store and realize they jacked up the price of milk, and that'll change the way you feel. You know, so you can't go through life responding to things based on how you feel in the heat of the moment. And that message has been consistent. You know, step back, take a moment, count to 10, woosah. Do whatever you need to do to bring your emotions in before you respond to things. That message has been consistent.
And that's really what, I'm really glad that you said that, because that's basically what it seems like, you're consistent with, like on Facebook and saying certain things. Is definitely, acting a certain way, or just, decorum despite things that are around you and stuff like that. And I definitely think that's what's important, because, a lot of the counterparts, if you will, when, people said something to me about St. Louis, or it's just, that's all they can focus on. You know what I'm saying? Black on black crime, even though I think white on white crime is far dwarfing that. A lot of other things, the looting, all the things that were going on where people were frustrated, that is a good percentage of what people saw. And that's what they got out of the situation. It had nothing to do with the murder, the killing, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That's what they saw. And look at how these people act, you know what I'm saying, when a certain thing. So I'm so glad that you said that, because that means so much. It has so much importance, because, one thing I think maybe our generation, we've gotten out of that, where I think maybe the folks before us, maybe they had some things in a little bit more control. I'm sure there was riots and looting and all that stuff, but a lot of times now I think our people, like, we ready to bust something down and show the camera that we doing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Definitely, man. Definitely.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up, and hopefully, that's maybe a message that we could get out, at least to some of the situation. So we're getting somewhat to the end of the interview. Now, I wanted to ask you a couple. What has been your most memorable experience there at Bethesda?
At Bethesda?
Yep.
Bethesda's home. Even before I went away to school, and was in high school when you know me, that's my home church.
Okay.
I grew up there. I've got a lot of memorable moments. I would say probably the one that stands out the most has to do with my most recent elevation. It's interesting when you grow up in a church and people have a hand raising you and teaching you, and then you turn around and now you're in a position where you're teaching them, and you're preaching to them, and you're teaching them in Bible class, and you're performing marriage ceremonies and eulogizing their deceased loved ones at funerals when, they used to change your diaper, so to speak.
Right.
So it's kind of a flip situation to see me come from, the bottom and working my way up through the ranks to now being I would say, second man in charge as the associate pastor under my senior pastor, Bishop Johnson. He's a great man. Bishop has been around for a long time. He's got a lot of wisdom. And so it's really an honor, something I don't think I'll ever forget, to, have him as we call him, my father in the gospel. And now to be able to serve side by side with him in leading the ministry to where it is now.
Yeah, man. I didn't know that, like you said, that's home, and maybe, that's why you came back to the STL. It like you said, you were in Virginia, but yeah, maybe that's why you came back to St. Louis. So
well, it is why I came back, and I kind of had my own plans in mind. I didn't want to come back to St. Louis, but it really was a God-inspired move, and I do have to admit I came back kicking and screaming because I had my own plans, and St. Louis was no longer in the picture.
Right.
But it is what it is, and I want to be in the will of the Lord and do what He wants me to do, and if that's in St. Louis, then amen.
And I'm sure that during that time, there was someone that you talked to that, you wouldn't have talked to because you were in Virginia. You know what I'm saying? You would have been just like me.
Definitely.
probably we've been talking on Facebook like, damn, look at how St. Louis look, man. Like that's all I could do is just like, because I felt like embarrassed sometimes, but at the same time, I mean, I understood the frustration, but man, it was just the first time just being something from the outside, you know, and just seeing your hometown like that. So it's good that someone like you was still there. But man, it was a trip just seeing just the news, people just talking about St. Louis, and I remember, and I would log in to see what you would say, or to see what other people back home on Facebook were saying, just to kind of see. That was like my news feed, you know. But yeah, a couple of nights there, it was pretty serious. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah, man. So getting to the end, I really appreciate your time, Julian, man. I've always been a good role model, so that's why I said, man, you know, good HBCU grad, man. So, and in the band, I mean, it was just a perfect match. Do you have any advice for anyone? Because you already gave some good snippets already, but do you have any advice as far as just anyone in general, as far as, well, you know what, advice for the young people? You have advice for the young people?
Narrow that down for me, because that's kind of broad. There's a lot I could say. Did you have like a specific anything in mind? Any one particular area?
No, I honestly, because I just kind of want to see you. Well, you know what? Is there anything else that you could expand on as far as keeping your emotions in control? I mean, I
think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that, especially for young people, because we react to a lot of what we see and a lot of what's going on, and we respond to a lot of the inequalities and injustice that we face, not just African Americans, I mean, any ethnic group. And I think that nobody can control how you respond to things that happen to you in life. Nobody has control over that except you. And I think it's important to learn that there's a time to speak, there's a time to shut up, there's a time to step forward and take action, and there's a time to stand back and watch things play out before you make a move. And I think that's important to learn in life, because there's an element of pride in each one of us that feels that we have to prove to people, well, I don't have to take this, or I'm in charge. And so we react out of those trigger moments, and we end up messing stuff up, and in some cases make ourselves look bad, because we didn't think things through. And I have not gotten where I am in life or in ministry always responding to things by using the first thing that came to my mind. You know, sometimes it may have made me look like, you know, the fool up front because I didn't say anything. But as time progressed, then it's revealed that the wisdom that I exercised in keeping silent was the best approach, because things, I believe, like the scriptures teach, all things work together for good to them who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. So if you use wisdom, whether you see the results of it immediately or not, it's always going to play out in your favor later on down the road. And I think that's how you get things accomplished.
Man,
I think that's how you get things accomplished. You know, people had a lot to say about Malcolm X, and they had a lot to say about Martin Luther King, but if you study those early civil rights fathers, they didn't always do what people thought was good in the heat of the moment. You know, even in looking at the movie Selma, and how when they were marching over that bridge and Dr. King decided to turn around and go back the other way, and everybody kind of followed him. I thought that was a powerful moment, because people didn't understand why he did that, but it ended up working in his favor, you know, and people had something to say about, we shouldn't have did that, and we should have did this. And, you know, again, there's that part of us that wants to rise up and prove, I'm the man, I'm in charge, let me show you. But that's not always the best approach to take. So I would just say, when it comes to responding out of your emotions, take time, step back, look at things holistically, and map out how you want to respond. That's going to help you in life. It's going to help you in your marriage. It's going to help you in your finances, to just be a well-rounded person. And it reduces stress.
Yeah, because definitely you make a move and it wasn't good, you sure stressed out about it the next day.
Yeah, exactly. Now you got to deal with that,
with what you did on top of it. So, I mean, that's really good, man, because I know myself, I'm a reactor myself, and I'm trying to get it under control, man. But yeah, man, you definitely make a good point. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the main thing that I saw, man. It was just, I guess, the reaction and just a lot of the highlight on the reaction. But but then I saw you trying to have the meetings or trying to have the talk and at least address the people, and I wanted the listeners to hear. I wanted to hear that part. Just hear that folks on the ground there in the STL are doing some good things and at least trying to spiritually, connect with folks and make sure that everything is on the right track. So, man, I really appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you. And it looks like you was there for. It looks like you was there for a reason, man.
Yeah. I mean, that I don't say that in a bad way.
Right.
I like I said, I understand God has His purpose and He has His plan. But sometimes in order to be in His will, you got to give up your own personal goals and ambitions.
Mm-hmm. That's real. I've also seen I seen a bumper sticker and it say, "God, I made a plan and God laughed at me," or something like that. Or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common saying. If you want to make God laugh, tell Him your plan.
Tell Him a plan. Yeah, tell Him your plan. Yeah, that's what's up, man. Well, hey, man, I sure appreciate your time. Love what you're doing. Love you, man. And
thank you. Likewise.
Thanks for all the time. And I know I want to make sure I holler at Aaron. I'm always saying I'm going to holler at Aaron, man. I got to make sure I holler at good old Aaron Foster, man.
Oh, yeah, give him a buzz.
Yeah, I definitely do. And you was with Aaron and Floyd. I got to give a shout-out to Floyd, man. Floyd, I used to always...
Floyd Crenshaw.
Floyd, I think, was from North County somewhere, too, right? Or...
Floyd grew up in Northwoods.
Northwood, that's right, Northwoods. A whole bunch of folks out there in Lutheran Northwoods. Floyd used to work way out there by me, where I grew up. For all the folks referencing St. Louis, I grew up in West County by St.
Okay.
By St. And by the strike and spare lanes. I think it's Lindbergh and Schutz. I grew up in that neighborhood. Floyd, I used to see Floyd at the Deerbergs down, I think, Olive, and I think, like, Ballas or something like that. And I used to be like, man, look, why he go to high school with me, like Floyd?
Yeah.
And I used to be crunk because, I didn't never see nobody from school out in West County, man. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Floyd, man. It's always good seeing Floyd. But like I said, 93 was y'all had a really good class, man, a really special class. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that. We tried to do some things and be an example.
Yeah, man, I hear you, man. Well, I appreciate your time, Julian.
Thank you, Joe. Likewise.
All right, we're back, and we want to thank Julian for the interview. Really good catching up with him and filling me in on what was going on back home in the STL. I forget our pattern thing after each interview. I think we've started doing that for good luck here. But a really good interview. Thanks again to Julian. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll help send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business. Again, you're welcome to call in during the last segment of the show. We'll have our last commercial break before we sign off for the night, hear from our beloved sponsors. Again, you can call in at the number that you see there on your screen, 718-664-6025, in regards to the show tonight. Again, be on the lookout this weekend. We have our conclusion to the 2015 Director Series podcast this upcoming weekend. And, of course, we have a couple more Choppin' It Up interviews for this season, and that'll roll us into the 90 Degree Show for 2015. All right, so let's hear from our beloved sponsors before we sign off for the night. And again, you're welcome to call in at the number you see there on your screen.
Hi, this is Steve Tormenstein, or Mr. T as my former band students at Lutheran High School North in St. Louis know me. Recently I talked with Joe Beard, a North grad, who I taught and coached in band and track. We are chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
From photo shoots to graduation pictures, from probates to band footage, from pageants to yard shows, there's only one team you can count on, the Edge One Productions. Visit theedge1.com and trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Need to write music and drill? Get it on the field. Outfit your band. Keep your administrator happy and still have a life. Encountering drama in the process, ain't nobody got time for that. Let Block Band Music assist you with musical arrangements and drills to fit your band, and also the equipment, gear, and accessories to keep the visuals, music, and marching on point. Contact blockbandmusic@gmail.com and see how this worldwide minority-owned business can uplift your band.
What up, bandheads? Are you looking for a talk show about HBCU marching bands? Well, look no further than the 90-Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast. Every Sunday during the football season at 8 p.m. Eastern, we recap the most intriguing battles of the weekend and give you, the listener, an opportunity to voice your opinion on the battle by calling into the show and talking with our panelists. Are you ready for the only interactive show in the world for HBCU marching bands? Then check us out Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. The 90-Degree Show, the interactive HBCU band podcast show.
What if there was a Facebook for bands? Wait a minute, there is. Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org is a social network for HBCU show bands. You can create your own profile and post videos, photos, and comments on Bandhead.org. Need somewhere to post events, audition schedules, job postings? Check out Bandhead.org. Are you recruiting for talent? Go to Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org, a social network for bands.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Darian Hampton, Meharry Medical College, class of 2007, School of Dentistry, and you are here chopping it up with the Marching Podcast.
All right, guys, we are back, and thank you again for calling in. Thanks again for all those who are listening. I know this was the rebroadcast, if you will, of what was supposed to go down on Tuesday night. Again, Blog Talk Radio had some technical difficulty and it actually crashed the interview. So we're happy and thankful that we were able to get through it tonight. Thanks again for listening. We don't have any calls in the queue. I think there were a lot more people ready to call in probably on Tuesday. But we're happy we got through this actual episode. Again, if you didn't listen live, you can always use the same link provided there in the Facebook page or the link that we always tweet out for the show so that you can use the same one. No matter where you are, no matter how long in the future, you'll be able to listen to our episodes, our podcast episodes. But really thankful tonight. Thanks, extra shout out to Julian. Really appreciate his time. And just happy that he was there in St. Louis to actually do something. It's a really sad time, really something that was something that's been happening for a while. I actually saw the Straight Outta Compton movie today. Shout out to all the people involved in that. It's actually a really good movie. But again, the police brutality, something else, the Rodney King, all that being part of the story of how, that all came to be. But it's an unfortunate thing. It is what it is. But again, we're really thankful that someone like Julian was there to help pick up the pieces and help instill something inspirational there for the folks back home in St. Louis. So shout out to you, Julian, man. Really appreciate what you do, and we'll definitely be hollering at each other here in the future. Sorry about what happened on Tuesday. I know he was like, don't worry about it, man. It's technology, yada, 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 but still, man, we definitely think our numbers are always better when you don't have to do things like this. However, we're glad we got it all on wax. It's all out there on the internet for you guys to listen to a really great interview from a great guy. And you guys can listen to all of our other interviews coming up for the rest of this year. So go ahead and follow the Marching Podcast so we can help you do what you do, all right? That's all the time we have for the show. We want to thank Julian for his time. Check out the website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks to you for listening. And remember, the eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. See you next time.